Oh yeah, everybody. We are here at the Human Variety Hour. How is everybody doing out there in Human Variety Hour land? How are you doing, sir? How are you doing, madam? How are you doing, gender neutral individual, in between those two people? Today we got some fun stuff happening here. We have a comedian by the name of Cher Lynn. We have a folk and street performer by the name of Chelsea a Spear. They are coming up later in the program. But right now we just want to make sure everybody's feeling good. Everybody's feeling heard. And we're going to have Timmy Thomas come to the stage and make sure that happens.
Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together? No more wars, no more wars, no more war. Just a little peace in this world. No more wars, no more war. All we want is some peace in this world. Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together? Gotta live, gotta live. Gotta live together. Gotta live together. No matter what color, you want to steal my brother. No matter what color, you won't steal my brother. Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
We have to take a station break.
And what? And what else?
And sell some more oranges.
No, read the whole thing.
And we'll be back.
That's the important part.
You can trust your car to the man who wears the star, the big, bright Texaco star. You'll wonder where the yellow went when you brush your teeth with Pepsodent.
Look at the coffee as it gets darker and stronger. But will this cup of coffee taste as good as it smells? You bet it will, because it's Maxwell House, the coffee that tastes as good as it smells every time.
Just let her put you in the driver's seat today. You country cornflakes, you country cornflakes.
matter what shape your stomach's in, when it gets out of shape, take Alka-Seltzer. That's part of our code. The code of the National Association of Broadcasters for television and the greater...
Artist that looks like Julia Roberts in Hook. So when said guy was back there going at it, I guess he didn't know how to react to it. This is what he did. Oh yeah, I'm a real boy, Peter Pan, yeah! I don't write jokes, I live them. Really uncomfortable for me because I had to turn around and say, that's actually not a quote from Peter Pan, that's actually Pinocchio. Peter Pan was the one who was, wanted to hang out in the woods with his friends, never grow up, build forts, string along Wendy and Tinkerbell, Pinocchio was aspiring to be a real boy. Come on, guys, learn about your heritage. But yeah, just wanted to end really quickly. I did meet someone, and he told me he was dating multiple people, including myself. Really great. He couldn't narrow it down who he wanted to be in a relationship with. Heavy lies the crown, right? So, if any of you guys are going through that, I just wanted to let you know you're dating so many people, you're not sure who to pick. Just want to let you know you can always go fuck yourself. I'm Cher, thank you so much.
Hey, Cher.
Hey, Ryan, how's it going?
Not too bad. Welcome to the Human Variety Hour. We just listened to you talk about Pinocchio.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a great memory.
Yeah, was that a good guy? Was that a good relationship you went through?
It was great. We actually, what's funny? We've stayed in touch, and he's actually really flattered that joke was written about him.
Pinocchio?
Yeah, the guy who pretended that he was Pinocchio when he was referencing the tramp stamp.
Yeah.
We're good friends.
Well, that's good. It's good when you can come out of it without too much collateral damage.
Exactly.
I always like the idea of you talk about you talk about how small a man's Johnson is, and then you get off stage and you're like, so we're still good.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but I think it's always good to be friends with exes, and laughter's the best medicine. So if you can make jokes about it and laugh it off, maybe it doesn't work out right away, but over time it's okay. Over
time, if you can, it's that long build, you can build some kind of dynamic. So how are things going as far as, are you seeing any new Grimm's Brother Tale related relation? You having any kind of other nursery rhyme type dating experiences?
Guys haven't recently referenced anything with Disney, although I did, when I was living in LA, I did have to say I dated a guy who did refer to his dick as Mickey, which is a little awkward because I was thinking, was he referencing it as dick meaning like Mickey Mantle, which would be great baseball player, or Mickey Mouse? I'll never know. He had a substance abuse problem, and I haven't heard from him in a while, but I'm wishing him all the best with him and his Mickey.
Yes, it sounds like things are going well for him either way,
But yeah, no, guys always say funny things, and then now in quarantine too, it's real. Everybody's really stepped up their game with what they're saying over messages and sexting, and so it's a jungle out there. How
do people even do that? Because now everyone has to stay indoors, and literally people can't go visit each other. So people are spending a lot more time just being we're just talking and getting to know each other. Is that?
I think that actually, yeah, there's a blessing in it, because I do think there's that side of it, which is the optimistic side of people getting to know each other. But then I think the other side of it is the extreme of the people who are balls to the walls, I have no inhibitions now, because I'm getting messages from people who I don't even know asking to pay me for not nudes and not for sex, but for their time and their company. One guy said his name is Zaddy.
I don't think that's his real name. I don't think he was born with that name.
But he sent that on Instagram, so I'm like, okay, maybe it's something in the air right now. I don't know. It's a ballsy move from people.
There's a Zaddy virus going around.
There is. I thought it was a comic or something, maybe under the guise of this guy's daddy, but who knows?
Yeah, that's interesting. So wait, he was trying to get you to pay him to keep him company?
No, he friend requested me and said that he's not looking for. I actually have the thing. It's really funny.
Yeah.
So he says that he wrote, "Don't think," there's some typos in this, so I don't know what's going on, but he wrote, "Don't think I'm young. I'll be paying your weekly allowance, which is $5,000. No sex or nudes. Only need who will keep my company. Heart, heart, heart." Yeah.
Huh. So $5,000 is the weekly allowance?
I guess so. According to this guy, I didn't inquire too much further about my friends. It's been this running thing with my friends because they're like, well, actually, most of my guy friends are like, "Oh man, I would do that."
I'm right there with that. I mean, that's more than I make. Like, I mean, it's just guys just being a zaddy and he's just giving you a stipend just to, you know, just to have a good virtual time.
Yes. As of when I saw the request, he has one follower. I'm not sure who the follower is, but I haven't probed enough to find out.
Yeah, I mean, that's real intriguing, but there's a good chance that some of it might be disingenuous.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if anybody is like, "Come on, I've been offering a good $20,000 a month for these people, and no one's taking the bait, and I'm just walking around trying to get rid of some money."
You know, I was thinking he picked the right climate to do this in, because I'm thinking he's probably throwing this out there, thinking people are really wanting the money right now. So hey.
Yeah, because there's a moratorium on physical labor. Like, people can't leave the house, and like, I think you and I are privileged to be able to work from home.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. I know it's so separate from my comedy. Like, my day job is so opposite, but I am really grateful because so many people I know, you know, they're getting just like laid off, and yeah, it's been tough. But Zaddy's gonna have to figure it out for himself because I won't be entertained. I won't be the one to entertain it. I can't speak for anyone else, but
I would pass it. I would maybe open up, get like a classified ad out. Just say, "Hey, you know, I know there's like the government's offering these kind of monthly kind of stipends. I know." Right. Marty Walsh is putting out these incentives for artists who can't get gigs right now. I know a guy named Zaddy. I'm just putting it out there that maybe there's some benefactors that might benefit from his services.
Exactly. Hey, I'm not going to judge how he stacks his paper, but it was a very unexpected, and you know, in comedy you get a bunch of random friend requests. Yeah. But this one I was like, okay then. Keep it moving.
Yeah. I that's where I screen people. I don't know if everyone's worth each and every moment of your precious time, which begs the question, like, now that we have so much time on our hands and we're stuck indoors, just trying to keep ourselves entertained and busy and happy, how have you been managing with the quarantine in your home and not being able to do comedy?
Oh my God. And this was I was so looking forward to this because I've had like work stuff all day, and I was so happy to like even be a part of this, because even though it sounds so cheesy, and I know this is going to start a wave of so many comedians wanting to do this, because it's so nice to like have this opportunity, because it's hard. Like, I love comedy, and comedy is something that I use not only as something that helps since I went sober, which I mentioned to you earlier, but also like it offsets the monotony of the day job, which is like I work such a corporate type job. So it's like so nice to have comedy to look forward to. And it's like a love-hate relationship, but just not having it, not being able to kind of like, you know, go to a show, go to a mic, like have that interaction, you know, it's been like tough. And I've been keeping really busy with, well, obviously primarily my work stuff, and then going for walks to get fresh air. Yeah. And then in 2020, I promised myself I would read at least one book a month. So there's been a lot of good books I've been reading. Yeah. And, you know, just positive things. So.
What kind of things are you reading? Are you reading like motivational things, or are you reading like literature?
So I like bios. Like, I normally read a bio or autobiography. This up here, well, you can sort of see it because I have my like vision boards.
Yeah, the listening audience can't see, but you got like a food pyramid over there. Is that what that is?
It's the Pyramid of Success. It was John Wooden's book, and he was like the championship basketball coach of UCLA.
Yeah.
So he wrote, the steps of the Pyramid of Success. And then I read a lot of books about like career, like how to prepare yourself for the next step in your career. And with the downtime, I've been reading like finance books. I work in finance. So like, taking that time, I actually got a book recently. And a lot of, so I like Hunter S. Thompson, and I'm all over the place as far as like what I like, but I got an Allen Ginsberg book, which is about the like forefront of like the beatnik movement and like poetry and all that. So
yeah,
just
that's a guy. He went to court. Wasn't he like facing jail time because he wrote poetry that said cunt and stuff in it?
I'm sure. And
like,
there's that, and it was like, so it's him and Jack Kerouac. This book is supposed to be really good. It's letters they wrote to each other. I haven't cracked it open yet, but it's supposed to be awesome. But yeah, I like that. I don't know. My mom was an English teacher, so I have that side where like I love prose and I love poetry and I love classic literature, but I try to read some current things also. So yeah, just I think with sobriety and like with the stress everyone's going through too, like keeping busy.
Yeah.
Zoom has AA meetings, which is I think a huge thing. So yeah.
Well, that's tough. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, as far as like the different, I don't know what to read anymore. I don't know if I got to a point where I'm like, there was things I've been meaning to get to. I fell down these, like, I'll pick an author that I love and I'll go through their works if it's someone who, like, they have to speak to me directly.
Right.
But then I'll go to a bookstore, I'm like, I don't know what to read in here. Like, everything that comes out, and I'm like, is it worth my time? Do I want to sit and read, like, 300 pages or something and be like, well, this was just very self-indulgent of an author. There's a lot of, is there time for fiction? Like,
I know.
It's like,
it totally depends on what your style. So you like fiction? Is that
I do. I mean, like, I grew up in, like, I studied English. That was my undergrad, and like, so that was like some of my like things that even bring me to who I am now is like William Faulkner and his narrative style, like his like his experimental devices and things. Like, those things are like things you could take and be like, I can apply that to other things. Like, there's tangible. Like, you can learn skills by just reading really great authors. But then there's some things where I'm like, but then isn't some fiction just like a lady with long hair walks by the beach? And, and then
is what I think it's just kind of, you have to find, I'm all over the place. Like, I love current bios, I love the classics. But I mean, there's still, like you're saying, there's classic stuff that has like changed my life and influenced like who I am as a person, like, so I go back to those things, and I think it's important. Some people are not into that at all, but I like it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's very powerful if you read Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah.
And if you read like, I wrote my whole master's thesis on Samuel Beckett, and so he's like a theater of the absurd. And I just was so touched by that, and I tied into some of his plays about women with the feminine mystique, and I read a bunch of like feminist literature, and I mean, I'm kind of, again, like all over the place, but there's some stuff that's just so powerful, and I just love it.
Have you ever read The Yellow Wallpaper?
I feel like I've heard of that, but I don't think I don't, at least not that I remember.
It's a short story. Like, basically, it was one of those stories, like, I took a literature class that was like, they had like like, I noticed that looking back that like, oh, it was like feminist literature, like really early stuff.
Okay.
Like Sister Carrie was one of those. I didn't read them all. Like, I was kind of like, I'm going to read my books and spark notes the rest of the books.
Yeah.
But one of them was like this short story about yellow wallpaper. And it was called Yellow Wallpaper. And like, basically it's about this woman who, during this time, it's when just healthcare was so backwards that they're like, women were labeled hysterical just for having emotions, and they treated it like a medical condition.
For sure, yeah.
And so this whole story is about this woman who's like basically she's a housewife, and she just spends all of her time in her own home, and she just goes insane, and she's like hallucinating, watching her wallpaper dance and stuff like that. It's really kind of cringy, but you're like, life was terrible. Like, for a woman at the turn of the century, where it's like, they have no value. There's no value in a society where they're just supposed to be a good wife to the role that they're given, and then they're called crazy for feeling unhappy.
Yeah, the feminine mystique is like a big one with that. So I like picked that apart and I found pieces of that applied to like certain plays by Samuel Beckett about women.
Yeah.
And it was about like female entrapment. And yeah, it's like emotional reading some of it. Like, but you know what, fun fact about me? So my mom taught English, right? So really random fun fact. My pediatrician was Mark Vonnegut, Kurt Vonnegut's son. Isn't that cool?
That's crazy.
I like to tell people that. And so Mark Vonnegut is a writer himself. He wrote about his mental illness, and he's published 2 books that you should read that are amazing. He's a doctor as well. Like, he went to Harvard. But well, I know I just said that. He's a pediatrician. But he's written The Eden Express, and he was basically a hippie, and he kind of talks about how he worked through different things with his mental illness. But he's a really cool person, and I don't know. I always thought that was really cool that was my pediatrician. Yeah,
like the world's so small. Like I feel like the children of literature, of like literary giants, are like they're kind of like immortal in some. Like they're almost like they were born like not immortal, but their parents are immortal. Like I saw something like it was like something at Boston Library. Arthur Miller's daughter, I guess her name is Rebecca Miller, and she's also a writer. So she's talking about some story she wrote, and she's married to who's the guy who plays Lincoln? He's the actor. He's like the real serious guy.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. It'll come to me. I can probably Google it.
He's got one of those. Yeah, he's like I know if anybody's listening, they're like, I know who it is because I have the time to think of who it is. He has like three names. He was in Gangs of New York.
Yeah, I know who you're thinking of. I'll find it.
Yeah, but basically
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah,
that's the guy. He's the guy that's like a brawny. He's like a living like brawny paper towel kind of mascot kind of thing. But like his, I guess she's married to him. Like Arthur Miller's daughter is married to Daniel Day-Lewis, and it's like such a weird mythical. I don't know. I feel like when people write novels that like stand the test of time, it's like they've already sealed their immortality. But then if they just have some kid that doesn't do anything, and they're just like, what do you do? And you're just walking around being the kid of some immortal giant.
I think he talks about that in his book, the Mark Vonnegut book. I haven't read the second one. I haven't read yet, but the other one, like, I'm sure. I mean, and think about the name too. I mean, like you're a kid and you have the same last name.
And that's a heavy name. That's not just like Smith. You could get away with being like Smith or Thompson or Hunter S. Thompson. If you had a kid, you could be like, yeah, nobody's confusing. But if someone walks around with a name that's like Vonnegut, or like I don't know, like
especially in New England, you're gonna know.
Yeah. So yeah, what else were we talking about?
Talking about dating and sober, but yeah, like,
sobriety. That's something where. So here's something I found myself coming into, and I think maybe you could relate to this. Like, I'm trying to step away from wine. It's one of those things where in comedy, every venue is a bar, and the ones that aren't, they don't exist really. There's not. If there are any, it's like, oh, this one's in a pizza place, and it's like. Yeah, but who's going down to the basement of the pizza place to go check that open mic or that show out? It's real. People go to bars to see comedy, or at least it's a music venue, and then they have, it's a bar still. So, like, trying to be, like, living outside of that life of, like, I'm going to just have some drinks, do some comedy. We're all just hanging out. We're just having fun. But then there gets to a point where it's like, yeah, but then you slip into these, like, cracks of, like, I don't know, everything has to be cozy. And then, I don't know, it's a slippery slope I've found where it's like, all right, now we're dealing with a virus and we have to be quarantined. So it's like comedies every day and you have to stay indoors and create your own social life. And then it just becomes, well, what am I doing? Just drinking alone? That's what you're not supposed to do.
I think of it as like the isolation almost, like trying to come up with some type of structure for like writing. You know what I mean? Because like, or
we're talking
like
discipline.
What you're doing is like a prime thing because it's just otherwise I feel like you're just going to go crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you need an outlet.
Yeah, there's productivity is what it's all about. Like I feel like in these things where I'm like, I just can't sit still. I mean, even if there's open mics, at least I could say, all right, I can forgive myself for going to work and going home and watching TV for like 4 nights out of the week. But if I don't have Thursday night to go out and do an open mic, and I don't have this other thing or this show I'm running every month, like I feel like there's no pillars in my life of productivity. So I'm like, the momentum has to keep running. Otherwise, like, you know, whatever you're trying to build or cultivate, it's just kind of like, you know, ultimately it's like, I just want to have this creative thing that really you answer to nobody but your own vision. So it's kind of like having that and then trying to keep that alive somehow. But that, at the same time, it's like it has to be meaningful. Like there's so many things you could waste your time on, which, you know, including if you're not happy at your job or if it's not fulfilling, it's like, what are your hours for? Like, you spend 8 hours doing something you don't like, and then you have the other hours where you do stuff that's just a waste of time. So it's like, it's really becomes like up to you, or like, it's all about like, you know, like Henry David Thoreau, like living purposefully is like really the only way to achieve joy. It's like you have to go out and find it.
I know, and I've been like trying to do more. So when I first got into being sober, like I did a lot of yoga. I did a yoga teacher training, and I like a lot of meditation, and I've been going back to that too. Because I like, even if it's just for a couple minutes a day, like making sure I get on my yoga mat and like just to like sink back in and like just settle a little bit. Like even if it's a busy day and I have other stuff going on, like, because that's a big thing of like like being in the present and then kind of getting my mind in the right headspace. So I've been trying to adjust with that, and like, and then just preparing like when we can have shows again. Like I'm excited to go to mics where people just have a pile of new material they want to try. I mean, I'd never booked a show, and it took me, in the years that I've done comedy so far, I finally booked a show for a charity that I have been, like an organization I've been supporting and like working with, and I was so proud of it, and I booked all my favorite comics, and now that's going to be, you know, delayed, and I get it, everyone's is delayed, but I just keep just brainstorming like different ideas and different things that once you can be out there and, you know, you can like get back into things physically. But until then, I mean, I think a lot of it's going to be stuff like this, a lot of like Zoom, a lot of Skype. And then I'm just going to try to really just putting like the pencil to the notebooks and like writing as much as I can, you know, even if it's just, sometimes I just do like where I'm just writing, you know, a bunch of ideas or words down and then kind of go back to them later, you know?
Yeah. Do you write from a place of like, this has to be a joke? Or do you write from a place of, I'm just thinking out loud here and we're going to see where it goes?
I used to try, like when I first started, I did that. I used to be like, well, this isn't funny. This has to be a joke. Like it has to have this and this. And then now I'm like, no, like I just think of the idea or like the concept now, and I might revisit it later. Or like I'll think of something someone says or something that happened, and I'm like, okay, this is a good premise, and then I'll kind of come back to it. But yeah, in the beginning, when I was like very green, I feel like my thought process, which wasn't even fair to myself, I'd be like, well, this has to be a joke. This has to be funny right now. When I realize now, like, I've taken jokes that have taken 2 to 3 years that I don't even like, I'm still working it out. You know, like I still love the joke and I want to hang on to it. It's just not worked out yet, but I'm not ready to give it up.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's almost like everything is such like everything's like an evolutionary type of product. Like, I feel like if it's a bit or it's a piece of your life that means something to you, I feel like ultimately it's not going anywhere. If you're talking about something that's just a pillar of who you are, or like something that just, you know, it's just something that you just kind of, it's always going to speak to a part of you. So like you can always refine it, and then you're like, oh, here's another way to look at it, or here's a new, almost like when you gain perspective is how the bit gets better. And it's like you can only gain more perspective by living life.
Right, totally.
And things just kind of cultivate, like almost like just, you really just have to let it ferment like wine, like just leave it in a cellar for a couple decades. And
you know Kathy Ferris, right?
Yeah.
She said like there's nothing like chasing a joke, and I was always like, okay, like what does she mean by that? But now I get it. Like when you still want that like joke and you still want that concept, but it's like not there yet. Yeah. And then you kind of feel like it's starting to get there, starting to work out. Like there's still things that I like that just aren't worked out yet. I still have to figure it out, but I get it, because when you get a joke that you've done and you kind of play with how you deliver it or the beats, or you play with the timing, like saying it differently, pausing differently, like, you know, just one line, like it's such an interesting process, and it's like it's your creation. It's like your baby. And
Yeah.
then it's cool because like I love that the comedy is personal. Like I know not everybody feels that way, like, but I like making my material personal because for me it's like really meaningful. And especially with being sober, like when I have done sober outreach and like events like that, it's made a difference with people because they're like, thank you, like I actually identify with this. And you know, not everybody does, but some people are like, yeah, like I get that, you know, like I've been through that or I understand that. It's kind of cool to see how you can take something that kind of was really difficult and sad and make it something that can help other people, you know?
Yeah. So do you find like a lot of comedy for you is healing or finding kind of a remedy to something or providing some kind of relief?
Yeah, it's definitely like really personal, I think. Like it's always personal for me as far as like the way that I develop it and I think about it. So yeah, like and I talked to Dana about this because he's like one of my closest friends in comedy. He's like a mentor to me. Yeah. And he was saying that like, you know, you get to a point where he feels this way too. Like you want your comedy to mean something. And that's the huge thing with me is like, it's not even about me thinking I'm the funniest. Like I know that I'm not. And like, it's not even the overall goal to be the funniest for me. It's like, I just want it to be meaningful. Like, so that's the most important. And I think, yeah, if the funny can come from that, that's awesome. Yeah. But like, but all the other opportunities I've had to kind of blend like outreach and like helping other people in that, like that's the primary thing. I think that's the most satisfying, you know?
Yeah. No, totally. That's because you want to feel fulfilled, and sometimes even just being funny isn't fulfilling enough.
It's not.
It has to be deeper and funny.
Yeah, because I even say that too. I'm like, even if I was this person who like went and crushed, like I don't know. I mean, sure, it'd be great, but I don't know. Like, there'd still be something that I'd be battling with in turn. Like, there's always going to be something. The grass is always greener on the other side. So it's like I'm always going to be overanalyzing, and you know what I mean? I just do that anyways. Like I pick everything apart. Yeah. So.
No, I feel that. So how about this? Like, so when you you're doing like virtual AA meetings, you say that, where can people find, if people are struggling and if anybody's listening and trying to put down a drink, where would you advise people to head to?
So there's one right now it's www.zoomaameetings.com. There are multiple other ones. I think that once you get into that group, you can probably locate different time frames, but that one is every night at 9:00. I think they've had such a good turnout that it's literally been all the time. It's people from all over the world, you know, like, so I think it's great because if somebody even just wants to tune in for a little bit and there's a chat and, you know, just knowing you have resources, like somebody shared that on social media, and I don't know, I just think it's really good to have that out there, you know, like even just to check in, like sometimes like I'm not even able to really maybe do the whole thing or stay for the whole thing, but I've never shared. Yeah. And like, it's just good to kind of like go, and I don't know, it's been helpful for me.
That's great to hear. I mean, it's even something I might even think about checking out. A few weeks ago, I was coming out of unemployment and also kind of in a spiraling spot, you know, during the holidays. I was facing an eviction, and I was relying on some bad crutches, which, you know, it's drinking wine, smoking weed, and staying home, which is like the crippling thing of not being productive. So like I entered this 2-week program, which was like an intensive it was like a partial program where it's a group therapy, and like that was really beneficial. Like group therapy is really helpful, and I don't know if enough people, like there's so many people there that got so much out of it, and they kind of never really saw it coming. Almost like people are like, I didn't know people felt bad because nobody talks about it in real life. Like, and then you slowly learn that everyone's here and they're also unemployed, and there's so much shame about being unemployed and feeling worthless, especially I'm not sure what city you're in, but in Boston, you know, it's such like a careerist town.
I know, yeah.
Especially if you're an artist or a musician, people kind of, they look down on you if you're trying to be someone pursuing a life of the heart. And so they see it as just kind of being like a bum in some way. But like I feel like, yeah, so I was in there, and then like kind of it comes out like, yeah, I'm down on myself. Everyone kind of shares, and like, yeah, I'm unemployed. Eventually, just kind of like, I'm not in a great spot right now. And then you kind of learn that, oh, slowly people start to come out. Once one person opens up, it kind of triggers someone else to feel more vulnerable to say, I'm also going to come out with this. I'm also going to open up about this shame that I have. You shouldn't have to carry that shame. It's other people putting it on you. It doesn't belong to you. So it's like, you shouldn't even have to, it's all about like, you can control how you react to things, but you can't control how other people perceive you. So don't bother to do that.
Yeah, I did like years ago. I was having a really hard time when I was in California, and I was like in my 20s, and I wasn't making good choices, but I was in really unhealthy relationships. And I did an outpatient, like a group therapy, and it really helped me because I thought that like I should just get over stuff and deal with it. And I remember them saying to me like, that you're being really hard on yourself, making it seem like you just have to like toughen up, and like you're being overly sensitive. Because like what I was going through at the time was like really legitimate and like really changed my life, and it helped me. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks that I did the program, and things weren't perfect after that, but I was isolated too, like at that point, because I had party friends, and like look, like I take responsibility for that, but that was just like the world I was in. And like that was it was like self-medicating. It was like, oh, if I have a bad day, this is how I'm going to deal with it. And like, I can't speak for everyone's experience, but like for me, I just know that when I was having a hard time with stuff, like that's what I was doing. And it just ended up making it just worse and worse and worse. And like, finally, I don't know why, just one day I just was like, I really need to just like figure out what is making me do this. And I need to just do like this inward journey. So that was when I got into like yoga, and I got into like just this whole like, I honestly had to change friends for a while, because I just realized aside from partying, like I had to make new friends, because when I wasn't partying anymore, I had to find people who wanted to go get a cup of coffee, or like, you know what I mean?
That's hard. Because it's a different lifestyle altogether.
Yeah, it's different. And I was like in LA, and I had really cool friends, and I'm not saying I don't own my mistakes, but it's hard because I was always, and I was also always in like restaurant bar industry too. So like you're always around that, but I feel a little bit more secure. I think it would have been harder for me to be like around alcohol, like maybe a few years ago, but I think that I'm pretty much comfortable enough now where like, I know that I like one time, like it was a few months ago, I went to New York, and I wanted to drink, and I was like there by myself, and I went to an AA meeting, and it was kind of good because I didn't really know anyone in New York. So like, I didn't feel like I was going to know anyone. So it was kind of a good way for me to do it. Cause if I went local, I would feel like everyone would know, not that it's a big deal, but so I went, and I felt like really good about going. And honestly, it really helped me. Like, it sounds like so cliche, but I went for like an hour, and then I was like, I didn't have that, like, I didn't feel like I needed to, you know what I mean? It just, I felt more comfortable. But I think it was because I was alone, and I was just like, well, I could have a drink. I could go buy a bottle. And then I was like, but why? Why am I doing this? Like, what's really going on with me where I want to do that? And like, so then when I went to the meeting, it like helped, Yeah,
like it cleared it up in your head, and it also like puts it into kind of context where you're like, yeah, you don't need to do that. And some of it's like your brain is just relying on old muscle,
Yeah, because I always felt like, and I always make jokes about this, about like dating with like sobriety, but like when I was younger especially, like I always thought when I drank, like it was like I was so much more fun, or I was like the life of the party, even though like I was probably being really annoying, and like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like a good, but like at the time I would always be like, well, I'm going to go on a date and I'm going to have a few drinks. And now I'm like, no, it's just going to be awkward, and I'm just going to work with it, like,
yeah.
I don't have, but that was like how I was like, that would be like how I was dealing with it, And now I can like talk about it. I'm comfortable talking about it because I don't, it happens to like a lot of people, and it's something that you work through if you're willing to work through it.
Yeah. And it doesn't make you less, or it doesn't make you less cool. Like, I feel like there's some of that thing where like, this person doesn't know how to party. They're a bunch of nerds now.
I had that's another thing I've sort of made jokes about, but like I have gotten like people who like guys with dating who are like uncomfortable when you don't drink. And I'm sure that's probably more their problem, but it's like someone will be like, why aren't you drinking? And I'll just be like, there's a lot of people who just don't drink because they're allergic or they don't react well. And I'll just be like, oh, like I'm just not, I'm just going to have like a soda or whatever. But some people are like weird because when they drink, they kind of want you to drink.
Yeah.
So
there's that thing where it's like it still is a peer pressure. Like it's not like they're like it's not like there's these people in trench coats walking up to you and being like, "Hey, I got something." Like people, it's not even like that. Like when you're told that, like as a 5-year-old in health class, it's like it's literally just someone being like, "I just want to feel the same way as you do." Like it's literally, I think, just a form of relation. And they're like, "It's easier for me to relate to you if we're both on this kind of slowed down bandwidth."
Even though I would never, ever, like, I would never be judging, like,
Yeah.
To each his own. It's just more like for me, like, I just know it's not good for me, like in my own level. So like, I just am not, I wouldn't put myself in that situation. And so it's just, I learned, I had my time, I partied, like, I'm good, like, I don't need to do it anymore.
You got it. You accomplished it.
Yeah, I lived it. Like, there was no stone unturned. I don't feel like I was like, this little like shy person. Like, I mean, I got it out of my system, but yeah, it's hard because I'm happy with comedy that I'm open about it because there's a lot of people who reach out to me, but like you do feel like there's some people who judge you, and it's like, whatever. I mean, it's just something you kind of have to like just deal with.
You mean people are judging you when you go on stage and
people who judge your persona, but I think there's also people who, when you put labels on people, like, anyone can have a substance abuse problem, anyone can have a drinking problem, but I think there's people who like put labels on you, and like for me, it's like I'm willing to like put that vulnerability out there, but I don't care. Like, I'm happy that I do that because I feel like it makes me who I am, and I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for what happened. So like, I have more depth than I did before. So like, I don't really, but yeah, I do think sometimes people are a little bit like, when you say you're sober, like, cause some people just get uncomfortable about it because if they drink, they don't want to, like, you know what I mean? Cause I don't push it on other people, but I think people just think you will.
I had something like this where it's similar, but it's not the same. Like I had a roommate who, he had a dog and I have a dog and we lived together, and there's these kind of butting of heads, and like, I got this vibe, or at least even he kind of said it was like, it seems like you and your dog are better than us. Like there's like, but I'm like, I don't even know how to like deconstruct that, or I'm like,
that's awesome.
I don't know what to tell you. Like, I like to show my dog love and affection, and like, I would try to like, be responsible about being an owner and like making sure. I don't know. I don't like being a rude neighbor, or like having a dog bark, and I would maybe helicopter parent a little bit. But this other guy was like a musician. He drank a lot, and his dog, he wasn't neutered, and he's just going around humping everything. And his dog found his way onto my dog, and I kind of freaked out about it. And he's just like, I didn't even want your dog here in the first place. And I'm like, I don't know. You and your dog have a lifestyle here where there's a form of toxic masculinity that translate to dogs too.
That's so. I mean, it's funny, but it's like awkward. But yeah, like,
it's weird. But it's like this vibe of like, you think you're better than me because you're choosing healthy things. You don't want to live. I don't know, like in anguish or spiraling depression. You don't want to walk around with dread. Like I'm trying to
feed my depression.
Yeah, I don't want to feed my depression.
Everyone's different. Like I can't judge other people who smoke weed and drink because like everyone has a different experience. Like I have friends who are awesome when they drink and they're awesome when they smoke weed. But me, myself personally, I'm not speaking for anyone else. I'm just saying like that stuff makes me depressed.
Yeah.
It wasn't always like that, but towards the end, like I was depressed. So I've had people I've dated be like, you know what? It's just not going to work because you don't drink and you don't smoke weed. And I'm like, and they're like, well, I drink and I smoke weed. But it's like, I don't get like, look, your life is your life. Like, but to put that on me or like try to use that as an excuse is just really unfair is what I think.
Well, it's almost like veganism to the idea where it's like, I'm choosing not to eat, like I eat meat, but like, it's like if someone was like, I just choose to not have meat in my diet. And someone's like, oh, you vegans trying to, but like there's ultimately, it's like, it's nothing to do with you.
Right, exactly.
It's to do with me. It's like, it makes my health feel better if I don't, or if
It's your own choice. Like,
Yeah.
it's your own choice. Like, and like I said, like, I have friends who are awesome who can, like, drink and, like, they're chill and, like, they don't get out of control. But
Yeah.
it's like, why? I've had people literally be like, why can't you just have one drink? And I'm like, that is the whole problem. I can't.
Has someone ever come up to you and said that?
Like,
Like, why aren't you having a drink? Jeez, you're such a lame-o. Like, has someone really ever, like, criticized you for not having a
like,
drink?
I've had one, and one guy was like, we were supposed to go on a date, and he was like, I'm sorry, he's like, I can't do this. Like, you don't drink. And I was like, oh my God, so what are your dates? Your dates are just you getting drunk? Like, that is a weird date.
Wait, he needs you to drink too, so what, he looks better when you're dating him? Is that his requirement?
He was really nice, and then
Yeah.
he was like, because I used to put off the top, like in my dating profile, that I was sober,
Yeah.
and now I don't. But like, I don't care if someone knows it. But he was like asking me about it, and we had been chatting, and then we were supposed to go on a date, and he was like, you know what? I thought about it, I just can't do it because you don't drink. And I just thought that was the weirdest thing, because that says more about you. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, that's so, like, what the heck? Like, were you planning on getting me, like, hammered? Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand.
It's I think it's very it's nihilistic and self-destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And like, just because not everybody wants to live on, like, you know, live fast, die young. Like, some
Right.
people want to have the most amount of time to have the most amount of joy. And I don't know, I think it's about, like, it's all about, like, the penny wise, dollar foolish kind of thing. Like, no, if we drink, we have fun every night. It's like, yeah, for how long though? And then all of a sudden you start getting, like, indigestion every night, and like like everything hungover. You can't even, you know, you start to be able to not be able to handle your drinks, and all of a sudden you're just kind of like sloppy and slurry, and you're just not thinking coherent like, I don't want to spiral down to like a judgment of people who drink, but like, because I literally have a glass of wine to the left here, and I have my own you know, ambivalence about it, but it's like that thing of like, I have the devil and the angel on each shoulder.
Exactly.
And one of them's like, hey, it's Friday night. There's a pandemic. Isn't this fun? There's a podcast. But then the other side is like, but like, I don't like, you know, I know probably later tonight I'm going to, like, you know, have like spiraling anxiety. I know that, you know, it makes me not feel, you know, I pride myself in like my ability to focus and have like clear thoughts, and like it definitely impairs my creativity, my productivity, and like that's the heart of joy. I feel like it's like the most fulfilling way to have joy, and it's the most sustaining, like self-sustaining kind of joy there is. Drinking just lasts for a couple bits, and it's fun for them. It's very fleeting.
Yeah, and it's like I just, towards the end, like, I would just be so, I felt so, even like with my friends and being in California, like, I always felt like isolated after. Like, I always felt at the end like not well. Like, even if I just drank once a month and I had a couple drinks, I never felt great. And then I felt like I'd be worrying about what I said or what I did, and now it's just like, I don't want to worry about that stuff anymore. Like, I just, for me, I'm not speaking for anyone else, but it just became like, you know, like, it just,
it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, like, and I didn't sleep well, and I didn't, like, it just wasn't my thing anymore. I think, like, for a while it was sort of fun, but at some points I look back objectively and I'm like, was it even really fun, or was I just, like, just being ridiculous, and, like, just, it was and the thing that, it wasn't anyone else's responsibility, because you have to figure out for yourself when you have a problem, but sometimes I wish that the friends who were getting annoyed or something like that, like, somebody would have pulled me aside and been like, hey, like, I think that you might have, like, a little bit of an issue going on, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, eventually I came to it on my own, which you have to do anyway.
Right.
But it would have been nice if someone was like, yeah, I think it's funny and, like, you're entertaining or you're ridiculous, but, like, maybe you need to, like, take it down a notch, you know?
Yeah, it's like you're yelling at the neighbor's kids with your hair curlers. I think you have a problem.
Yeah, like, it just was like taking it to just going over the line, which is like, I'm already, like, you know, like a creative person out there, and so it's just like, I don't even feel like I really need it. I already have an outgoing personality, you know, so it's like, it kind of just fed more of like, and like I told you when I went to New York, like thinking like, hey, I can just get a drink, I can just have a ball, like, but then I think about I have these dreams, and a lot of people have these when they're sober, like where you think that you drank and then you are like mortified, but it doesn't really happen. It was just a dream. But like I always think about that
dream or something.
Yeah, like I feel like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't like the way I would feel after I would be so sad, like, and depressed.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's not the goal.
I know.
I feel like we could talk about this for 1,000 hours.
I know. I feel like sorry, I went on a I went on a sober podcast tangent.
Yeah, if we weren't on a show, I feel like this would be great, even if we had like a part 2 at a later point or something like that. Because I feel like ultimately this is something I think people would value. People could benefit from just having resources or people they can relate to.
Yeah, definitely.
But that being said, it was so great talking with you, Cher Lynn.
Yeah, and awesome talking with you too.
We'll have to do this again soon.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, talk to you later.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
That was Cher Lynn, everybody, talking about the ups and downs and spirals of living life as a creative person who's trying to seek fulfillment while also trying to live a healthy lifestyle. I am working my way towards it, and we all have our goals and our demons, and we're all trying to find a way to kind of make it through this crazy thing. But there is one thing I want to kind of share here. While we are in this kind of time of uncertainty, particularly about our healthcare system, which hasn't been too great, something worth sharing is that it has never been great for people with pre-existing conditions. And that's where I want to play a little bit of a phone conversation here, where I learned some interesting facts about how people don't give a fuck about diabetics. And here's that conversation.
Sorry, I didn't get your first name.
First name is Ryan.
Ryan. So I apologize. The persons you were speaking with, the people who answer the phone here at the specialty pharmacy are technicians. So I apologize that the way they communicated clinical information to you was probably not as clear as it could have been. They actually weren't pharmacists you were speaking of. I, being the pharmacy manager, am also a pharmacist, so I can clarify a bit. Specialty, in the respect that partner specialty is currently active in service, is rheumatology, oncology, hepatitis C, and we just branched into neurology. We're an establishment that has only been in operations for just over 2 years, so we still have a long way to go. We typically, specialty pharmacy in general, houses drugs that you can't find at your local CVS down the street. Some specialty pharmacies, the big box ones like CVS and Walgreens specialty, they'll have both types of medications, your more maintenance medications like blood pressure medications, cholesterol medications, diabetic supplies, and insulin. They'll have a combination of both. We, being such a limited service at this time because we're relatively new,
2 years. 2 years is new. You called 2 years is new, you said?
I don't call 2 years new. Our hospitals are quite large, and we service all of the prescriptions from the point of prior authorization to dispensing. So we're not just a pharmacy in that sense. We handle all of the clinical care on the back end.
Okay, so let me just cut you off for a sec. So what you're basically described as oncology. You list some others. Dermatology is another one that's interesting. But
no, I didn't list dermatology.
Well, it's on the website, so that's included.
I didn't.
Dermatology is included. I guess some of those can't be found over the count. Some of those can't be found at your big box. Some of the skin creams can't be found at the big box. But you cover them.
No. What
Okay. But you do
What is it
cover
specifically you're looking
medications for.
Ryan?
I'm looking for answers, but also just looking to kind of get to the bottom of what your service is, what you're portraying and what you're doing, and the difference between those two things. So, as a specialty pharmacist, you're providing heart medications. Those are available at your big box CVS's, skin condition
Did you say
stuff.
heart medication?
Yeah.
So we're in cardiology in a very limited space for a drug that very few pharmacies have access to.
Understood.
That we were granted.
But I'm wondering why, when your specialties, your specialists at partners, when you list oncology, why is endocrinology not part of that purview? Because it's very clearly one of your specialties within the Brigham and Women's program.
A hospital specialty is very different from a specialty pharmacy specialty. We're talking two different things. We're comparing what a hospital services to what a specialty pharmacy.
But you're providing the pharmaceuticals that those specialties require to treat those patients, correct?
Not all specialties. Not all specialties.
Just a couple of them, just the ones you pick and choose?
Yes.
Why do you pick and choose skincare? Why do you pick and choose skincare over type 1 diabetes? And immune conditions, you list everyone but diabetes.
Okay. If there is a particular drug you're looking for, I would be happy to help you find that drug, but I'm not going to sit here and argue our strategy for service to our own hospitals.
I don't even get that. What?
That's some crazy bullshit. So basically, this specialty pharmacy covers all these specialty medications, and if you hear what they cover, it's very extreme things. It's dermatology is one of them. I'm sure there are some ones she listed, but if you look on this website, you'll find that dermatology is something that they have this basically this boutique specialty pharmacy setup that does all the hard work of securing prior authorizations, making basically so it's an in and out shop for people who have special pharmaceutical needs, so they don't have to feel any of the burden of climbing through the hornet's nest of the insurance industry to get the medications they need. Now, conveniently, they do not include endocrinology, which is very much a specialty at the hospital. But she made it clear that they pick and choose here and there, but if you kind of boil it down to what these specialties are, it's some pretty premier access kind of stuff. Basically, what are the conditions that the elite sectors of society experience? Heart problems, skin issues. That's as superficial as it gets. Nobody wants to fuck with a diabetic. Nobody wants to make their life easier. I can't tell you how many times I've had to fight and wrangle with pharmacists. You go to CVS and they just won't do any of the lifting. They say, go talk to your doctor. Doctor said, we already sent it to the pharmacy. And then the pharmacist says, all right, go call your insurance. The insurance says, we didn't approve this, or we need a prior authorization. There's all these disconnected parts of the industry that don't speak to each other, but ultimately they put the onus of burden to the diabetic. Now, if you have this specific insurance plan, private insurance, there's an in and out shop for you at Brigham and Women's that makes it so they do all the work, they do all the lifting. If you need that skin cream, they'll figure out how to get it to your door and mail it to you. Now, while there's a virus going on and people that are vulnerable are people with immune conditions, when you call this specialty pharmacy up, they say that is who they're treating, is people with autoimmune conditions, except they do not treat diabetics. So that is just a glimpse of just the apathy of this world and why type 1 diabetics are really the of the U.S. healthcare system. And by the way, my bleep button is kind of overreacting. I meant to say diabetics are the nits of society. I don't know why it keeps filling in there. I don't know what's going on here. Diabetics are the nits. What I was saying is neglected individuals. And for some reason this... Oh, it worked. Okay, I was able to say it. But that is basically, in a nutshell, just a glimpse of why diabetics can't get no love out here. And if I could just be myself and walk up to that lady and just pull out my heartstrings, I would go up to her and just say... That's how I feel. Deep down inside, that's just how I feel a little bit. I feel like people just don't care. Type 1 diabetics just, they're routinely discriminated against. Most workplace insurances don't cover Novolog. If you ever have to sign up for an insurance plan with a company, you'll find that United Healthcare is one of the most common plans, probably because it's the cheapest and the most generalized, doesn't cover Novolog. And the more you go one by one to these different private plans, every year they exclude more and more medications. And more often than not, Novolog, which is the current standard of insulin for diabetics, drops off the list. Another one, Harvard Pilgrim, doesn't cover Novolog insulin, makes you pay out of pocket for it. And it's like you're taking $200 out of my paycheck every week to give me nothing. So this is the stuff that makes my blood boil. Makes you want to just really just open up and go. You're just messing around with this man. It's just, you're trying to just live your life, trying to succeed and pursue a type of life and have a job that you can feel passionate about and that makes your life easier. But there's these people standing in the way of that, and you just want to look at them and go, it's a damn shame, is what it is. People just, picking on you. You're just trying to go through life and with the least amount of harm, and it's just a shame. Right now, what's extra nerve-wracking is that hospitals and doctors' offices aren't even seeing people. Because of the virus, they're literally just saying, stay home. If you get sick, so... That's what they're saying. It's we need Medicare for all now. We've always needed it, and this is the point of it's a point of mass cultivation. It's just we've reached our threshold. We don't have enough resources to adequately serve anybody, so we need to pump some of that money into the hospitals. We need to have these CEOs cut their paychecks, fund their staff, pay for there to be more staff at the hospitals to handle emergencies or just general well-being. Even before there was a pandemic, I don't know if you ever heard the stereotype that nurses are calm and patient and aren't overworked. No, they've always been that. They've always not had enough staff. They've always had to run from place to place and pick up what the doctors drop on the ground and all that stuff. They aren't, they're overworked, they're underpaid, as the old saying goes, and they don't have enough people to lean on. And if you remember on the ballot not too long ago, there was a vote to set healthy patient limits. If you remember that, it's just one of those twists of the phrase where when you don't do too much researching and you hear that the Nurses Association says we want to create healthy or safe patient limits, they're trying to say we want to turn patients away at the door because we don't have enough staff to help them all. But there's always going to be patients. There's always going to be increases of population. So to compensate, you have to hire more nurses and healthcare workers to accommodate it. It's just the reality. So when you don't increase your staff and the patient numbers increase, yeah, you're going to hit a bottleneck. And when there's a pandemic, that bottleneck is going to explode. So now more than ever, we need more funding. We need to hold people accountable to have hospitals and healthcare organizations have all the resources they need to treat everybody and even have room to dick around on the internet and stuff. Like, I want hospitals to be bored. I want nurses to have nothing to do every now and again. But that's never the case. So that's basically what we're looking at. So you could walk into a hospital right now and walk in there with blood all over your smock and go, sorry, let me try to pedal that back a little bit. You can go to the hospital right now and you could have your guts coming out of your ears, and you could walk in there like, and they're gonna be like, yeah, take a number, we're busy. And I'm like, excuse me, I said, and they're like, sorry, we're busy, we're working from home, there's nothing we can do. And I'm like, don't you hear me? I said, and they said, yeah, well, we got to make sure our CEO makes $7 million this year, even when we're all turning patients away and we all don't have enough testing kits, and everybody who has a chronic illness is not getting the coverage they need from their insurance. And also, we are not seeing any new disabilities this year. We are not treating any new injuries this week because we're busy and we're understaffed, and the governor didn't make any plans. Charlie Baker did not make any plans to back up the state of emergency. He just said, shut down, figure it out, let alone people worrying about evictions, people not working these 2 weeks, and to be continued, who knows what that is. We don't have any relief funding sorted out. That should have been there before he declared a state of emergency that doesn't affect him. And by the way, our taxes pay for him to have health insurance and to not lose a wink of a salary. Same for anyone in Congress. Our taxes pay for Mitch McConnell to have the best health care coverage there is, to have a 6-figure salary. Everybody in Congress has a 6-figure salary and health insurance. And people vote for Joe Biden to make sure that we don't have health care that isn't privatized and excluding people with pre-existing conditions. People want shit not to work as long as it makes money for them and their sector. So again, you can walk into a hospital today, it doesn't matter how much money you have, but you could walk in there and go, and they're going to say, sorry, I'm taking the day off for Corona. So that is that. And I think George Harrison had something to say right here.
We have to take a station break.
And what? And what else?
And sell some more oranges.
Coca-Cola has the taste you never get tired of.
That joy makes Chinese food. Swing, American.
La Choy introduces frozen chicken chow mein.
Colt 45 malt liquor.
Take it off. Take it all off.
Come to where the flavor is. Come to Marlboro Country.
They're all dead from coronavirus. Here's Chelsea Spear.
Hey, Ryan. Good. How are you doing? Yeah, I know, right? Doing okay. It's been a week, hasn't it? Yeah, um I'm really scared of everything that's going on. And I'm hoping that everybody is staying safe and healthy right now.
I think my microphone was muted that whole time, but
No.
it's all good. We have you on the podcast here today. We're making the best of a global
Yep.
pandemic.
It's true.
Yeah, and I hope we're looking through the light at the end of the tunnel, and we have we have some time to kill.
Yeah, one of the things that has made me really happy this week is that there's a bakery down the street from me that opened about 6 months ago, and I've gone there a couple times a week and had breakfast and hung out and said hi to the owners, and I kind of feel like Norm from Cheers when I go in there. And I went in, and they've been closed for the past couple of weeks because of the pandemic. And this morning they reopened with pre-orders, and it was really nice to have them open again. And I was thinking about how that just felt hopeful to me, that they're still out there and doing their thing.
Yeah.
And it gave me some hope that maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel, as you said.
Yeah, that is cool. That I do see that some of these businesses that are real kind of hubs of the community, that there's a lot of music venues that are closing down. There's a lot of different businesses that bars and things have an order from the state to close down. But these little marketplaces and bakeries, like you said, they're finding ways to kind of operate within the confines, and they have limits on customer limits, and they have these kind of barriers set up. There's this grocery store I like to get stuff from. They have all my favorite treats and sweets over there, called Pemberton's, and they're actually
Pemberton's, yeah.
You go there?
I know about them. Yeah.
They have everything. It's a little hefty priced, but the quality is what it is, and you can get any kind of, for someone like me who has enough food allergies and nitpickinesses, it's they got everything I need and more.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Disney World of I can get all sorts of berries and
Yeah.
like the best kind of cold brew coffee and
Oh, nice.
but they deliver, so that was a cool thing. So when you're trying to be a shut-in as what's recommended these days,
Right.
they'll deliver like all the salmon and sushi and all these kind of types of meats and things. But
Yeah.
so how are things going? We were talking a little bit earlier that you're you're off the streets these days.
Yeah, I'm off the streets and out of the arcades.
Out of the arcades.
So, well, because I used to tell people when I was telling them about my hobbies, oh yeah, well that keeps me off the streets and out of the arcades, and that way I can save my quarters for doing laundry. But yeah, with the busking, I'm off the streets, and I usually busk in Harvard Square. I busk on the MBTA, and it's not a good time to be outdoors right now. And my first response to this global pandemic was frustration because of everybody has plans, everybody has things they want to do with their lives. And I was planning on busking a lot this spring. I was planning on recording an EP this summer, and I'm hoping that things will be cleared up enough that I can at least record the EP.
Yeah.
But I was really frustrated by how inconvenient this was, and then I started realizing that all of these things were happening to keep people safe.
Yeah.
And it's really scary right now. And I haven't been thinking as much about busking because I've just been, staring at the walls and refreshing my computer and refreshing the news on my phone and trying to figure out like what's going to happen next. And I've been lightly invested in music, but it seems like this is a really tough time to be. Like we need art right now, but it also seems like a really tough time to be making art. And so it's just I'm not on the streets right now. I'm hoping I can be back out there someday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's because, warm weather is like the best case scenario for, performing music out there. Like I like to, I enjoy busking in the summertime. Like I did this thing where I would go out every Saturday in the summertime and go down to Newbury Street. And like that's where all the money is. That's where all the well-to-do kind of tourism happens, and all the kind of boutique shopping, all that, and people who don't really know the difference between a $1 bill and a $20 bill. So like
nice.
You play some of that. You play some of those crowd pleasers, and you're like, you tap dance a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's like, it's a little bit of a nice little racket we got going on here.
Yeah,
that's not hurting too many people. There's worse rackets out there.
There are definitely worse rackets out there.
Yeah. Some of them are some of those rackets are actually finally taking a hit too.
I know. It's been
stock market's down.
But the thing with the stock market is that the stock market is not the economy, and it's scary to watch the stock market, but it's not. It's a reflection of like one part of the economy. It's not the whole economy.
It's not. It's almost like saying scratch tickets are going slightly out of business, but it's like,
right.
Yeah, we don't need those really. That's just that's just what people kind of do as like a little hobby or a little thrill-seeking venture. But yeah, I always thought like as far as like. Yeah, it's worse that grocery stores are going out of business, or like hospitals don't have resources.
Yeah.
But people are like the Dow Jones is down 1,000 points. We better fund the Dow Jones. It's like, I don't know who Dow Jones is, but why don't we make sure every citizen has
ventilators? Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we focus on the things that are tangible as opposed to this the invisible spiritual aspect of the economy that's not actually
people are healthy, because without people you don't have an economy.
That's true. Without people you can't place those bets on the horse races,
right?
So it's like if you bring it down to its most essential essence, it's like, we'll make sure Johnny the stockbroker has his health, and then he'll make sure your bear economy or bull economy is being extra growly. Or,
Yeah.
However I don't know much about the stock markets, but
Yeah, I know a little bit, but you could fit it in a thimble and still have room at the top.
I think so. So, you are what are you doing? You're knitting something right now?
Yeah, I'm knitting a sweater. I like to have things to do with my hands. I have generalized anxiety disorder, and which is something that you think, oh well, that just makes people nervous, but it affects a lot of different aspects of my life, and I have a hard time sitting still, and I find that if I'm doing something like this, like I'm on the phone with you, or I'm in a meeting at work, it helps me to have fidget. Just something that I can occupy my hands with while I talk to you about busking and about the economy and things like that, or while I'm in meetings at work and talking about the stuff I do there, or when I'm on the tee.
Well, it's like a fidget spinner, like a fidget cube, except at the very end you get a very nice scarf out of the deal.
It's true, yeah. That's how I need to frame it to other people. You guys have fidget spinners, but I have a sweater.
Yeah, I'm keeping myself warm and my anxiety at bay.
It's true.
No, I was doing something like that. Like when I was at my work, we were having a meeting. Like when things were catching on fire for the first time, and we were figuring out when are we working from home, what's the strategy, and I'm sitting there trying to stay calm, but meanwhile, I'm doodling furiously in my notebook, and all these Rorschach drawings are coming to life, and it's all these things where it's meaning is taking shape, and I'm my subconscious is being fulfilled, but meanwhile, it's some of that is anxiety needs a place to go, otherwise it'll rattle your brain off.
Yeah, or you'll develop some habit like picking at your cuticles or something, which isn't good. So,
no, yeah, they say it's not great.
So so instead of doing something that hurts you, find something like making a sweater or doodling or something.
I respect that. Well,
thank you.
Well, one thing I know that you also do is you play ukulele.
It's true.
You say the time is that we can't play music outdoors, but we can play music indoors.
Yes.
And I understand you're working on an EP, and you might have some songs you might be able to share with us.
Yeah. So I just released an EP last summer called "Greetings from Rocky Point," and that is that's on Instagram. That's on Bandcamp. You can hear snippets of it on Instagram. And
let's plug those handles.
Okay, so on Instagram I'm Travels with Brindle, at Travels with Brindle, and on my Bandcamp is travelswithbrindle.bandcamp.com, and I put out an EP last year called Greetings from Rocky Point, and I started writing songs the summer of 2017. In fact, I posted my first original song that I'd written to YouTube the day after my birthday, and over a period of a couple of years I wrote 125 songs, and I picked the 6 best songs, or the 6 songs that I liked the most and thought worked the best together, and recorded an EP with Joel over at Zoomix. I'm blanking on his last name. Oh, Joel Edinburgh. Over at Zoomix in East Boston, and so one of the songs I'm going to do is from that EP, and it's called "Where's Francesca?" and it's inspired by this photographer Francesca Woodman, who studied in Rhode Island and lived in New York, and she was this very precocious young woman, and she died at a very young age, and she's seen as kind of a Sylvia Plath figure in photography. But if you read about her, she was actually really playful and fun, and I wanted to write something that gave some of that playfulness back to her, and that might inspire people to not just see her as a tragic figure, but also as someone who who had moments of levity as well. So I wrote a song for her called "Where's Francesca?"
Great, can't wait to. Great, we all need some levity right now.
All right, sounds good. Wait, it's... In a dilapidated dollhouse on a narrow road, plastic footprints from Candace Mary Jane's are etched in soapstone. Wrought iron railings fall apart like vines. Where's Francesca? Will we find her this time? The floor plans some disordered interior geometry. A girl falls laughing from a hutch filled with taxidermy. Wallpaper feels like birch bark, leaves an amber stain. Where's Francesca? Will we find her again? Did she leave her imprint in the flower by the floor? Does she dreaming of angels behind the closet door? Did she fall through the mantle, propped up in the hall? Did her polka dots dissolve into the sparkle on the wall? A girl with hair like seashells, her face freshly scrubbed, stands here stone reclining in a 12-foot bathtub within these four walls. It's neither day nor night. There's Francesca. She's hiding in plain sight.
That sounds fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Let me ask you this. How did your ukulele get the name Brindle?
It was actually an older ukulele that I had. It was the first ukulele I had. The wood grain looked like a brindled, like a dog's brindled coat, and I thought, well, maybe that's what I should call my ukulele, is Brindle. And I was thinking about, I was an English major in college, and I was thinking about John Steinbeck's final book, which is called Travels with Charlie. And I thought, well, I'm always, going up and down the T with my my ukulele, so why don't I call myself Travels with Brindle? I don't think that the ghost of John Steinbeck will smite me for that one, so let's just go with it.
Yeah. No, I think I'll let you off the hook on that one.
I hope so.
I mean, I think it's for a good cause. You have a very good literary sensibility about you. I think if he's able to apply his name and his memory to another medium that he himself, I don't think he can play music too well, so you're doing something he can't do.
That's true. Yeah, there's not really much competition.
You maybe play one more song, and then we'd love to have you back on the show again. We kind of pushed the time envelope a little bit today.
Sure.
We had a big hearty discussion with the first guest about sobriety, and I think that's a heavy topic for a lot of people right now. I think people are anybody who's trying to stay the course is probably being tested beyond all belief right now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I hope that your first guest has some peace, because this is a really tough time to be dealing with sobriety.
Yeah.
But I am going to be recording a second EP, hopefully this summer. I know that right now is a tough time to plan, because you want to make sure that everybody stays healthy and safe and not exposed.
Yeah.
And just as a little preamble, I read a book last year called The Idiot by Elif Batuman, and I was inspired to write songs after reading that book. And I have an EP. I'm not ready to say what the title is yet, but I have an EP that is very loosely inspired by one of the vignettes in the book. And I'm going to, I know that we talked about having me do Later or Love.
Yeah.
That one actually sounds pretty similar to Where's Francesca. Would it be okay if I did Something's Wrong?
Yeah, whatever you like.
Okay. So this is called Something's Wrong, and I was really stuck. I had to rewrite this song a couple times, and I ended up listening to a box set of this guy, Tommy Falcone, who was a music producer and a songwriter in New Jersey in the 60s, and he died in 1970. And so I was stuck rewriting this song, and then I asked myself, well, what would Tommy Falcone do? And this is the song that I came up with, and it's called Something's Wrong. I steal downstairs at night when my roommates are asleep. I read his emails by the glow of the Coke machine. If I was a little older, I'd show him my postponed folder. Something's wrong, I haven't kissed him. Something's wrong, I haven't held his. Something's wrong, what am I missing? Why do I care about this man? I should be happy here. I worked so hard for this. Rooms filled with valedictorians from first bell to class dismissed. 12 hours north of home. He makes me feel less alone. Something's wrong, I haven't kissed him. Something's wrong, I haven't held his. Something's wrong, what am I missing? Why do I care about this man? This can't Why do I care about this man? Something's wrong.
Something's right as far as I'm concerned. That sounded great.
Oh gosh, thank you.
But that did, like, every now and again, like, I feel like when you hear a song, you're like, like, you wrote it at one point in time, but then, like, it echoes throughout a different point in time, and you can find new meaning in it.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I was listening the other day, Paul Simon, he did some kind of, like, I guess there's some Willie Nelson has a festival, and they had to, like, postpone it because of this whole thing. And they did some virtual thing, but I think Paul Simon contributed a song, and he played an American tune.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole song is kind of this idea, like, it really just speaks exactly to this moment in time right now, even though it was written, like 1964 or something like that. So
God, yeah.
I mean, it's crazy how the right type of song can just transcend time, and it just lives in its own time and space that just applies to everything every time.
Yeah, I saw Laurie Anderson, the performance artist and violinist, at Sanders Theater a couple of days after 9/11.
Yeah.
And she has this one song where there's a line in it that's freedom is a funny thing, so fragile, so easy to lose. And she'd written this, years before 2001. But just sitting in this church, hearing her say that a couple of days after 9/11 was a really intense experience, because suddenly you realized other meanings that song would have.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it's almost that thing where, like, that person could have, like, someone could have wrote a song on, like, September 10th, 2001. And all of a sudden they didn't know that they were speaking to this vibration, like, before. It's almost like the eye of a storm. Someone wrote a song within the eye of a storm, and then all of a sudden, like, the other corners,
the storm passes.
It passes, and you're like, wow, they felt the vibration before it actually fully erupted. It's almost like it's like a Richter scale kind of thing, where someone's like, I can feel something, and I'm writing about that feeling, but then something manifests. And I don't know, there's almost like this thing where I feel like music is so primal that, like, it's all vibration based. So, like, it touches so many different subtle things that, to the point where it's like you can feel something, like, probably like a century before it shows up, but it's just like this little irkling of, like, little chirps of pain and struggle and persecution, and, like, every era has its own struggle, and every different type of person gets their own rights each decade. And it's like, so everything kind of has to do with each other.
Right.
I find myself listening to a lot of Sam Cooke, and, like,
oh God, yeah.
And it's just like he documents so much of his time, and it's still our time. Like,
I know.
It's just, if he's talking about the black struggle or the LGBT struggle, it's like you fast forward, and it's like more nuanced to, like, the mental health struggle or the trans struggle, or each new era that brings in, like, civil rights activity.
Yeah.
But well, that's some heavy stuff to get into. All amidst the gentleness of a ukulele. It's
true. Yeah.
It's powerful how much can be delivered through such a seemingly innocent device.
Yeah, it's it could be a Trojan horse. You come in and people look at you and they say, okay. Or people look at me and say, "Oh, there's a middle-aged lady with a ukulele," and they don't expect anything because I'm not someone who is looked at a lot. And hopefully, in making things, I can sneak some of these other messages in, and I can make people think about the world that they're in, and think about it in a different way.
That's all we can hope for.
Yeah.
Well, Chelsea, it was really great speaking with you.
Thank you, Ryan.
I hope we can do this again, and hopefully life gets back to normal and we can go outside and, if we have a stage show, there's a stage there for you.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I hope that there's a stage for you as well and that Newbury Street reopens.
Same here. And, we'll be back to busking out in the street one day.
Sounds good. Well, until that time, thank you for having me come on here.
Yeah, you sound great. And it was my pleasure.
Oh.
And I hope you stay indoors, wash your hands every 5 seconds.
Yep, I'm doing all of those things.
And let me know how that sweater or that scarf progresses.
Sounds good. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Bye. That was Chelsea Spear making the most of such simple pleasures as knitting or having a ukulele with a Oscar Mayer, my first name kind of story to it. We are reaching, we almost, this is almost like a double-length show, which it's our second episode, but we are really, there's a lot to be said. I feel like there's a lot of feelings and a lot of things to cover in such a short amount of time. So this one, went long, but we're going to keep on rocking and rolling. The healthcare industry is one thing. Sometimes you don't have, when you call it the healthcare industry, sometimes you wish there's more care in the health as much as it says there is. But sometimes you'd be surprised to find where you do find some care where you least expect it. And I want to share with you another phone call where joy was had in an unseemly place, in a phone call to Boost Mobile. Sure.
Yeah. So here's the thing, since you mentioned you're asking for more data, so we will provide you a more free data to your account, so you can be able to use for you to use the internet. Okay?
Okay, that sounds great.
Alright, wonderful. So now let me just go ahead and put the gigabytes data on your account. Please bear with me. Oh, by the way, I just want to ask, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Can't complain. It's a nice Sunday. How about you?
All right. Are you enjoying the weekend?
Yeah, it's not too bad. We have to stay quarantined because of this whole thing, but you just got to make the best of it.
Yes. Even us here in our country, we're already under quarantine. We are not able to go to work. We are not allowed to go outside as well.
John didn't like this song, Oh Blah Dia Blah Da. Am I correct?
Who says?
You were on vacation.
No, John did like that song.
He liked it.
I think so, yeah. I mean, we went on vacation, but we were in Rishikesh studying meditation with Maharishi.
Yes.
And we used to go to the clubs late at night, drink, dance, maybe a little food. And there was a friend of mine who I befriended in the clubs. He was an African guy. He was called Jimmy Scott. And, we would jive together, just, hey, man, what's going on?
Yeah.
And he used to say, oh, blah, da, life goes on, brah. Yeah, man, and I just loved this. And I would go, oh, blah, Jimmy, And he had a few other sayings. Nothing's too much, just out of sight.
Right.
So I loved all these little sayings. So I wrote the song in...
Lyrics first or music first?
Together.
Together?
Yeah. Which is kind of often how it happens. You just got some chords and you make a song up. And one thing I always love about the intro there, that piano intro.
So fast, too. It's like...
Well, what happened was me, George, and Ringo were kind of slaving over this.
Right.
And John wasn't there yet. John, he was late.
Yes.
Again.
Aha. Well, he's busy.
Come on.
God knows what.
So we're not getting anywhere with it. Chinga, 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 chinga. It was thinking, oh, God, it's not happening. And John comes in to the studio. He says, what are you doing? What's happening?
What are we working on?
What are we working on? I say, oh, bloody. He goes, oh, that one. He goes over to the piano. He goes, all right, what key? And I said, A. He goes, dun, 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 dun.
Just like that.
And we all fall in behind him and go, yes.
Because that's
what
the
it
beauty.
needed, that. Check,
ding, ding,
check,
ding, ding,
check.
ding, ding. And
The piano.
isn't that great when someone comes in with a fresh set of
Yeah.
ears and just goes, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Oh, man, what a
It's really
story.
a great little memory, yeah.
Liberty Mutual, take 96.
Desmond has the barrow in the marketplace. Molly is the singer in the band. Desmond says to Molly, "Girl, I like your place," and Molly says it's as she takes it by the hand. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La la la, then life goes on. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. Desmond takes a trolley to the jewelry store, buys a 20-carat golden ring, takes it back to Molly waiting at the door, and as he gives it to her, she begins to sing. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La la, then life goes on. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. Molly stays at home and does a pretty face, and in the evening she still sings it with fun. Yes, oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La la, then life goes on. Hey, oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. La la, then life goes on. In a couple of years they have built a home, sweet home.
I want to do it. Desmond has a barrow in the marketplace. Molly is the singer in the band. Desmond says to Molly, "Girl, I like your face," and Molly says she takes him by the hand. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. But now, la 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 la, life goes on. La la dee, oh, blada, life goes on. But now, la 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 la, life goes on. Desmond takes the trolley to the jewelry store, buys a 20-carat golden ring, takes it back to Molly waiting at the door, and she gives it, she begins to sing, 2, 3, oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. But now, la 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 la, life goes on. Oh, bloody, oh, blada, life goes on. But now, la 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 la, life goes on. don't fancy you, bloody, bloody. Thank you. Wow, that guitar was wildly out of tune, and I thank you for bearing with it. So I'm gonna talk your ear off while I'm tuning this bad bitch up to make it so it sings as well as I know she can. This guitar does not have a first name or a last name, but I don't like to assume the gender of my instrument, because that would be too presumptuous of me, and that's not the kind of person I'm trying to. I don't aspire to be a presumptuous individual, because that would not be beneficial in a society that's trying to understand each other more. We are trying to listen more than we project. At least we should, I think. What if I projected how you should be? You should be a good audience that enjoys everything I do, and even when my music is bad, you know it's good, because you know what I mean when I mean that I want my guitar to be in tune. Like you get it. You see where I'm coming from. Like, I'm trying to have a guitar that's in tune so you can see through the error of my ways to see what my heart's desires are beneath it all. It sounds a bit better, right? What if I just went and played that song like a third time? Like, you already heard Paul McCartney talk about it and how he got drunk with a Jamaican guy, and that taught him how to take life easy and write a song about it in the reggae form. And then you heard the actual song, and then you heard me do it with an out-of-tune guitar. What if I did it again with an in-tune guitar? If you weren't already not listening, you even more are not listening, so I will not do that. But we are reaching the end of our time here. This has already been a double show. I don't think people have the patience for a triple show. So I will play my adieu here with a song that I like to call Fare Thee Well, because that is the name of it, and I like to call it by its name. My baloney has a first name. It's Peter. about the one you love. Farewell, my honey. Farewell. Now farewell, my honey. Now farewell. Thank you, everybody. This has been another edition of the Human Variety Hour. I thank you for staying present. I thank you for listening. You have yourself a nice, peaceful night. We will see you again next Friday. The Human Variety Hour. She riot, lovely tune provided. It'll be good for you and me forever. The Human Variety Hour. With all that she admired, lovely tune provided. It'll be good for you and me forever. Good night, everybody. Wash your hands.